Well, if you have any doubt of the economic impact of the energy industry, look no further than the state budget. When lawmakers reconvene next February, they'll be facing a budget hole of close to $1 billion thanks to a dramatic decline in tax receipts from oil and gas. And exactly what to do about that was the focus of a forum sponsored by the nonprofit group Oklahoma Watch. The forum featured Republican Speaker of the House Jeff Hickman and the House Democratic Minority Leader Scott Inman, and was moderated by the executive editor of Oklahoma Watch, David Fritzke.
Early predictions, I'll just start off saying, are a budget gap next fiscal year that could run anywhere from $600 million like last year to over $1 billion. In the meantime, our prisons are overcrowded. We're scrambling to put teachers in the classroom. We're trying to fix the foster care system. So I would like to ask Speaker Hickman, are we looking at hard times here?
Well, we are, and we are looking at hard times across the state. We have 10,000 Oklahomans who have been laid off in the last several months, particularly in the energy sector. The good news, you've seen the coverage lately, 85,000 jobs available in Oklahoma, but there's 10,000 people that work in the oil field at good salaries that are no longer employed, that are trying to figure out how to feed their families. And those are 10,000 taxpayers that are no longer remitting income tax every month out of those good paychecks. So the state does face challenges, but they're not unlike the challenges that many Oklahomans are facing in their family budgets, their personal budgets, or unlike what Oklahoma businesses go through each and every day as they make business decisions. The good news is, and what we continue to try to work through, is we don't have a revenue problem in Oklahoma. We have a budgeting problem in Oklahoma. Our shortfall last year was $611 million. I think it's likely to be more this year. I think it could be, $700 to $800 million. I'm not ready to and nobody knows at this point. They're all guesses. So for anyone to say it's going to be $1 billion, it's a guess. Could it be? Sure, it could be. But I don't think that I don't think I'm seeing anything right now that would lead me to believe that that's the case. But here's the real issue with our budget, and this is something that Representative Inman and I have looked at and worked on for many years, not always necessarily on the same side, but we've discussed it for many years. We have $3 billion every year of off-the-top money that doesn't come in for Representative Inman based on what his constituents tell him or what my constituents tell me or anybody that you elect to get to touch. It's called off-the-top money, earmarked money. And there's plenty of blame to go around because the Democrats put some of it in place when they were there, and we've added to it since we've been there. There's $3 billion there that doesn't come through the state budget process any longer. It automatically goes to agencies. And those are important programs. They're popular programs. There's a reason that they are there. But that's $3 billion that we've earmarked for certain things. So you take $3 billion off the table. There's another $1.7 billion in tax credits, incentives, and exemptions each and every year. Add that up, that's $4.7 billion that we don't have to work with, and you're talking about a budget hole this year of $611 million. We have some issues that we continue to need to work on. We made great progress this year on tax credits. We will finally have a system in place to evaluate tax credits. Every credit will be evaluated once every 4 years. So we will finally have the information that we've long needed to make educated decisions. But that's $4.7 billion that Scott Inman and his constituents, or Jeff Hickman and his constituents, or anyone else around the state who sent someone to the Capitol no longer has a say in how those dollars are spent in the state budget.
Representative Inman, what's your sense? How deep will this budget hole be, and what do you think the impact will be?
Well, that's a great question. I think the speaker hit it on the head. It's going to be big. It's more than likely will be bigger than the budget hole we had last year. But the impact of this particular budget year doesn't necessarily have any sort of outsized effect on what we've already seen the last 5 or 6 years. Because make no mistake about it, you'll hear excuse after excuse from some of the folks in power that says, well, the price of oil has gone down to $40-something a barrel, and therefore we must cut public education or higher education. Well, make no mistake about it, this legislature and this governor, when the price of oil was $100 a barrel, we cut public education funding deeper in Oklahoma than any other state in the nation when it was $100 a barrel, right? So what you have is you have a fiscal irresponsibility problem, coupled with the fact that I think what has come to fruition as we see what I like to call our core functions of government. The average agency in the state of Oklahoma, almost more than half of the agencies have seen 25-30% cuts, some deeper than that over the last 5 or 6 years. You look at our 4 core functions of government, those being education, healthcare, public safety, and transportation, and you try to just look at what's happened in the last 5 or 6 years, and you realize when you've cut higher education funding, you've cut funding for Common Ed. Matter of fact, we're about $320 million below where we were in 2008 when you adjust for inflation. We've got hospitals on the verge of bankruptcy, and we refuse to bring our federal dollars home, refuse to properly fund them. You've had cuts to DOC, you've had cuts to DPS, and then just this year they decided to take $75 million out of the County Improvement for Roads and Bridges Fund that would have gone to help fund a lot of our county roads and bridges issues that were being washed out because of the floods. They took that money out of it, and you see what you've got is a fiscal irresponsibility problem that can be summed up in one phrase, in my opinion, and that is we are learning the painful and hard way that you cannot cut your way to prosperity.
Scott had some numbers there that were accurate and several that weren't. And the truth is, when you look at the education funding, if you go back since the recession started in 2008, you look at those numbers forward, he's right. The state appropriation for common education is off, but it's only off less than 2% compared to several other agencies that have been cut 20 to 30% of their budgets. Higher ed about 5%, career tech about 12%. So the rhetoric just doesn't match up on where the priorities have been put in place. The other thing that we have to do as those that are asked to govern is look at the entire picture. You know, the numbers that Representative Emmons is talking about is just the state appropriation, the part that goes through our process. There's also the House Bill 1017 fund, off the top money that goes to education. There's local property tax money. Everyone in the room probably has had an increase in their local property tax money and rarely has had a decrease each and every year. When you look at all of those numbers added up together, we have more money available to public schools today than we ever have in the history of our state. The problem that we have is it's not getting to the classroom. It's not getting into teacher salaries, and that's the issue that we're looking at is why do we have more money than we've ever had in K through 12 schools, and yet our numbers aren't where they need to be in teacher salaries, and we have these issues. And I think that's going to be a real focus this year is getting those dollars where they need to be, which is into the classroom.
What I struggle with is this. The solutions that are being proffered are more cuts. More cuts. When you say, well, we've got $3 billion in off-the-top money, so what is that saying to you? That's saying those monies go to OLAP, Oklahoma's Promise. They tried to cut that a couple of years ago. I asked the Attorney General for an opinion. They said you couldn't do that. But they tried to cut OLAP, Oklahoma's Promise, for middle-class and lower-middle-class families to go to college. There's money that goes into transportation funding because we did such an abysmal job. The Democrats did, I'll be honest with you, before I got there, did such an abysmal job of funding transportation and infrastructure. So that money's coming off the top. So the solution that you're hearing is this. We cut income taxes because those go into effect in January, and the way we're going to make up for those income tax cuts is we're going to cut more money out of OLAP and transportation funding and send it someplace else. We cannot, folks, we cannot continue to cut our way to prosperity. If you want to grow the state of Oklahoma, you got to invest in those core functions of government. That's why businesses want to come here. If you have poor schools, poor roads, poor health care, and poor public safety, companies won't come and they won't fill those jobs, and we'll continue to get what we've always got.
But what we can do is a journey we started last year on tax credits. It's continue to look at off-the-top money and look at reforms to get control of that $4.7 billion that this state doesn't have to spend in our budget every year because it's either earmarked directly to state agencies or it's being given away in credits and incentives and exemptions, some of which are beneficial to the state, others of which may be costing us more than the benefit returned to the state taxpayer.
Now, if you would like to see the entire evening of what was a lively and sometimes intense debate over the state budget, we do have a link under our value-added section to the Oklahoma Watch Forum.